Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we keep looking at Journey Into Nyx, and we're going to move on and we're going to look at Pantheon's Power, which is the black and white deck. Let's take a look at the deck list. So it's kind of a unique deck list. We've not had sort of something like this for a really long time. It is 24 creatures, 10 enchantments, and 26 land. Just all permanents, no instants, no sorceries. Yeah, so it's actually kind of unique and it stands out in that way. A big focus of the deck is enchantments. So yeah, it's really staying on theme. So let's take a look at the deck and see if this kind of sticking to this kind of deck list actually works for it. Spoiler, I think it does. So the foil face rare is Doomwake Giant. So 4 and a black for a 4/6. So it has a Constellation ability, and Constellation is it's basically landfall, but for enchantments. So whenever the basically everything with Constellation is an enchantment itself. So basically whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield, you get an effect. And it's a real shame, actually. This is only coming in now in the last set in the block. It's kind of one of these. This kind of tends to happen that like the third set of a block introduces a new mechanic, and it's just something that would have been, I feel, better if it had been in the whole block, if it had been like a key point. Sometimes that doesn't always work out. Like sometimes a third set introduces a weird mechanic that is kind of bad, but in some cases you do get this thing where like Constellation, like this would have been great to have all the way through Theros. I actually would have preferred Constellation to Bestow, because I think Bestow's like a bit wonky as a mechanic, but Constellation I think is pretty solid and a lot more straightforward as well. Anyway, talk about Doomwake Giant. 4 and black, 4/6. So it's Constellation ability. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 till end turn. So it's turning every enchantment you play into a what's an equivalent? Cowering Fear, I think, was the M13 card that gives opponent stuff -1/-1. So if you play multiple enchantments in a turn, then this can be really good. Just shrink your opponent's side of the board, and then makes it easy for you to swing and do attack with Doomwake Giant, because he's a big chunky 4/6 as well. I quite like this. I think it's a pretty good rare for the deck to have. So then we've got 2 Underworld Coinsmith, so 1 white and 1 black for a 2/2, has Constellation. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life, and you can pay 1 white and 1 black, pay 1 life, each opponent loses 1 life. So it's a very sort of roundabout way of just doing life drain. Essentially it's like Soul Warden, but for enchantments, really, I suppose, isn't it? And then you use the excess life to do the life drain. I kind of wish, I don't know, that it was just maybe like a lot simpler effect. Maybe like if the Constellation effect was like you gain 2 and your opponent like loses 2 or something. So it's it's maybe you can't do it multiple times in a turn like you can here, like because you can pay just excess mana and do it. I don't know. I think it's fine. Just for it to sit back and just slowly drain life with its ability. So I think it's okay. Grim Guardian, though, I absolutely love Grim Guardian. So 2 of these. So it's 2 and a black for a 1/4 Constellation. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. I actually really love this card because it reminds me a lot of Thief of Hope back from Kamigawa. I love these kind of smallish black creatures that do like a sort of a life drain effect or a life loss effect when on a certain trigger, when you cast a certain type of spell or whatever. Because if you've been watching these videos for like a while, like if way back at the start of the year I was saying like, I was going back to playing games at like my local game store. I've since stopped now, but one of the decks I built, because I needed to build decks, was a blue and black enchantment deck that was all focused around Grim Guardian and kind of like replaying enchantments to kind of win just by this effect, by making opponents lose life by playing enchantments. And the fact it's a 1/4 as well, so it's like a really good blocker. Really like Grim Guardian. So really great inclusion in this deck, I think. So then we've got 2 Dreadbringer Lampads, 4 and a black for a 4/2. Constellation gives a creature Intimidate until end of turn. So this is okay to give a bit of evasion. I would say I'm not really sure if like this deck's trying to win via combat, because you've got like quite a few grindy control options in the deck, honestly. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe my read on it is wrong. But I mean, this is still an okay in effect to give like an evasion ability. It's okay. You know, if you get it off more than once a turn and make more than one of your creatures like essentially unblockable, I think that would be pretty okay. Yeah, and it's still like a 4/2, so obviously it's a good target for its own ability. Then we've got 2 Harvest Guard Alcides, whatever. 2 and a white for a 2/3. Constellation ability, you prevent all damage to a to target creature for a turn. So I do like this. This is, I think, my preferred type of like these damage prevention abilities. I know these days we normally just get straight up indestructible. This I think is, essentially the best use, because it is immunity to all damage for a turn. It's not like only combat damage. It's not like you only prevent a certain amount of it. You're not preventing it from a single source or anything. It's just straight up damage immunity. So I think it's actually, for the time, I think this has actually been pretty strong, maybe, or not strong, but like good. Like just a good, solid effect. And it's on a 2/3 body for only 3 mana as well. So yeah, I think this is actually okay. Yeah. And then 2 Thought Render Lamias, 4 and double black for 5/3 Constellation. Each opponent discards a card. As I always like think these kind of expensive discard effects, I always think they happen like too late in the game for it to really matter that much, I suppose. I mean, it's still like an okay effect, obviously, to make everyone discard a card. Turns every enchantment you play into a discard spell, and the deck is full of enchantments. But it's okay. I feel it's a little bit of an underwhelming effect, honestly. But yeah, again, that's just my opinion. And it's still like a 5/3 as well, so a good target for the Lampad's ability to get intimidate and kind of swing and do damage that way. So the other red deck is Fate Unraveler. So 3 and a black for a 3/4. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Fate Unraveler deals 1 damage to that player. So this is kind of what I mean, that like I think the deck kind of wants to just hang back and kind of stall out a little bit, because you got like Grim Guardian, you got like the Underworld Coinsmith, and now you got like Fate Unraveler, which is every time an opponent draws, they're taking 1 damage. So yeah, I don't know. Like it seems like more this very kind of like Orzhov-y passive control-y kind of deck. Maybe that's my read on it. But yeah, I think this is like a pretty good rare. I think plays to the theme of the deck. So yeah, I think this is a good other rare to include. A single Brain Maggot, which is a shame. I really wish there'd actually been more than one in here. So 1 the black for a 1/1. When it ends the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card, and then you exile the card until Brain Maggot leaves the battlefield. So yeah, this actually gives me like sort of nostalgic vibes for the Nightmares back in Torment, who had this kind of like ability. I think this is straight up just the Mesmeric Fiend ability, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, this is like really solid, like really nice turn 2 play to like look at opponent's hand, choose the best thing from it, and just like, right, well, you've got to dedicate some time and effort to get rid of this tiny little 1/1 until you can get that good card back. So yeah, I really like Brain Maggot. As I do wish there was more than one in here, but it's pretty solid, I think. And then we've got 2 Nyx Fleece Rams, 1 and a white for a 0/5. So super chunky. At the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 1 life. Yeah, I think this is also really solid again. So I think goes to the deck's intended playstyle, which is like just to turtle up behind a bunch of kind of stalling options, like gain a bunch of life. This is so hard to get through, like a 0/5 that's also gaining you life. I feel like again this would draw like disproportionate efforts to try and get rid of it, because it's so annoying just to sit there being super chunky, gaining you life. Yeah, I really like Nyx Fleece Ram. I think it's pretty solid inclusion in the deck. And then we have an Archetype of Courage and an Archetype of Finality. I'm going to talk about both of these at the same time, I think, because they go together really nicely. So Archetype of Courage is 1 and double white for a 2/2. Archetype of Finality, 4 and double black for a 2/3. Archetype of Courage gives all your stuff first strike and takes away first strike from all your opponent's stuff. Archetype Finality does the same, but for Death Touch. So if you have both these out, all your stuff has first strike and Death Touch, and that just basically means you automatically win combat, doesn't it? Really, pretty much in like pretty much every situation. Yeah, really, both really strong effects. I'd say the Archetype Courage is maybe just like a little better, just because it is cheaper. It's only like 3 mana for a 2/2 to essentially give your whole board like first strike is really good, and to take it away from your opponents is really good. Finality's effect, I think, is arguably like a bit stronger, which is why it's, you know, double the cost. But yeah, both of them together, giving all your stuff first strike and death touch is so strong. Again, like, so I think if you, like I said, going into, I think traditional combat is not maybe like the goal of the deck, but yeah, if you got both these out, then you would, because like you know, the odds are so in your favor. So yeah, really nice to have both these in the deck, I think. 2 Odunus River Trawler, so 2 in the black for 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, return an enchantment creature card from your graveyard to your hand, and you pay 1 white, sacrifice it, return an enchantment creature from your graveyard to your hand. So it's essentially Gravedigger, but just for enchantment creatures, which is fine, and you can actually use it twice, which is really nice. So you can get actually a lot of value out of this, because you can get two raised dead effects from it, basically. So yeah, this is really solid. Obviously, the deck is full of enchantment creatures, so yeah, this is a pretty good card to include again. I think this is pretty solid. Yeah, I like it. And then some non-enchantment creatures just to kind of fill out. I kind of wish it hadn't done this, honestly. I'll talk maybe about a little bit more in the summary, but like I really wish this actually just gone all in and just had nothing but enchantment creatures, but oh well, we're here now. So 2 Acroan Mastiff, 3 and a white for a 2/2. Pay 1 white, tap target creature, so it just has a master decoy ability, which is fine, again, like good for kind of stalling out, I suppose, where you're assembling your enchantment combo pieces. Single Eagle of the Watch, just 2 and a white for a 2/1 with flying and vigilance, fine, perfectly fine, like French vanilla creature. And a single Farrakis Chosen, 1 black mana for a 1/1 with death touch. Again, absolutely fine. Always love a 1/1 for 1 with death touch. Always a good deterrent. And then, as it's a Theros deck, we have to have a vanilla creature, so we have a Rotted Hulk, just 3 and a black for a 2/5. Weirdly, one of the better of like the Theros block vanilla creatures, because it's because normally 4 mana gets you like just a vanilla 2/4 like Pillarfield Ox or whatever. So this being a 2/5 means it's actually slightly more efficient, but it's still just a 2/5. But you know, it's like a big chunky blocker, I suppose, which is I think what the deck kind of wants. But yeah, it's still an immediate first cut if you're looking to change the deck. So let's go on to the non-creature spells, which are, as I said, all enchantments, which is really, honestly such an interesting thing for the deck to do. So we have a single Armament of Nyx, 2 and a white, aura goes on a creature. If the enchanted creature is an enchantment, it gets double strike, otherwise you prevent all damage that would be dealt by it. So I really like enchantments like this, like you know, classic is like the old blue aura gaseous form, where you know, if you know, it can basically fulfill 2 purposes. Like you either put it on you know, like one of your creatures and it's going to benefit you, or you put it on an opponent's creature to set them back, and like it's essentially doing I really like cards like that. And there's another example of it later in the deck as well. So you're either giving one of your enchantment creatures double strike, which is pretty good. You know, all the the better creatures in the deck have got you know, are going to really benefit from everything benefits from double strike. But yeah, this is pretty good. Or you put it on an opponent's creature and you just kind of lock them out, being able to do damage. So yeah, really like cards like this where it's it's doing 2 different things. Really like it. 2 Oppressive Rays, 1 white mana, aura goes on creature. It can't attack or block unless the controller pays 3, and its activated abilities cost 3 more to activate. So yeah, I think this is probably find like a sort of a cheaper alternative to pacifism, and I think I've talked about it a bit before, but like it then sort of like puts your opponent in this kind of mind game where like maybe they want to pay to have the creature attack or block, so they've got to like leave 3 mana open to do that, and that potentially puts them off curve. So it is like an interesting alternative actually to pacifism, which is straight up like, nope, can't attack or block, and then yeah, it is actually quite an interesting sort of design decision to do actually. So yeah, I actually like there's 2 of these in here. A single Aspect of Gorgon, 2 and a black. Aura goes on a creature. It gives the enchanted creature +1/+3 and death touch. So it makes them super tanky. And you want creatures with death touch to be super tanky so they can survive to kill more things. So when I went to the Journey Into Nyx pre-release, I really wanted to open this with Nyx Fleece Ram and just like have like, I've got a 1/8 death touching sheep, and like just like the ultimate roadblock for opponent to get through in combat. But yeah, there's so many cards in the deck. This goes really nicely on. I think it's really just nice little aura. Maybe a little underwhelming, like it's a bit basic, but I think it does a lot. Honestly, I quite like it. A single cast into darkness, 1 and a black. Aura goes on a creature, enchanted creature gets -2, -0, and can't block. Which is like an okay effect. I said, as like I keep saying, I don't think combat is maybe the main goal of the deck, but at least taking a blocker out is okay. Also, this is just a nice cheap aura just to cast to get constellation triggers off, so that's okay. 2 Nyx infusion, so this is very similar to Armaments of Nyx, when I was saying, yeah, like I really like it when a card is multi-purpose. So 2 in the black, Aura goes on a creature. If it's an enchantment, it gets +2/+2, and if it's not an enchantment, it gets -2/-2. So this is kind of really the only kill spell you've got in the deck, which is a bit of a shame. And even though it's only just like -2/-2, or it can be, say a buff spell for some of your other creatures. So this is okay. Maybe a little expensive, but it's okay. And then a single Font of Return, 1 in the black. You can pay 3 in the black, sacrifice it, return up to 3 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. Out of all the fonts, I think this one's probably one of the better ones, just because you're getting like a lot of value from it, right? Like getting 3 dead creatures back from your graveyard is, I think, pretty good for. I mean, like, yeah, you're essentially sinking 6 mana into this, but yeah, I think if you play like a longer game, which I think the deck wants to do, I think you'd get a lot of value from this, getting 3 creatures back and then just replaying them. So yeah, I think Font of Return is pretty good. Font of Vigor is just kind of boring. It just gains you life. 1 and a white, you pay, and then 2 and a white, sacrifice, you gain 7 life. That's all it does. It's so boring. Really feel like there was something else it could have done, maybe, but I know that's me being a bit greedy. It is still just a common, and it is still a period where pretty much all white does is gain life at this point. And then your only other real removal option is Banishing Light. 2 and a white. When it ents the battlefield, exile a non-land opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. So really, yeah, your removal options are limited in the deck. I suppose you got like Doomwake Giant, I suppose, but yeah, that's, again, you got to put effort for that to work. And then 11 plains and 15 swamps. So let's talk about what could have been. So I sort of mentioned there earlier that I do kind of wish that they hadn't included like non-enchantment creatures. I think they should have just gone full hog, and just because there was enough like enchantment creatures in black and white across the block to do that, to include them in the deck. So I think that would have been good. Just go full hog, just bunch of enchantment creatures. So let's maybe talk about alternate rares. So what I think would have been really interesting, actually. So the Doomwake Giant, I think, is okay. I think the Fate Unraveler is more interesting, and with the Fate Unraveler in mind, I think instead of Doomwake Giant, Master of the Feast would have been an interesting alternate rare. So Master of the Feast, 1 and double black for a 5/5 flyer. So big chunky flyer. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent draws a card. So this kind of classic like undercosted like Black Demon, really good stats, but has this drawback. But if you have Fate Unraveler out, you're making opponents draw cards, and they're losing life from Fate Unraveler. So that could have been like a nice little combo, maybe, possibly. If not that, then I was also thinking Extinguishable Hope. So it's a board wipe that destroys all non-enchantment creatures. I thought that could be okay. Leaves most of your stuff untouched because they're enchantment creatures. And it would have, played more to the, control-y side of the deck, I suppose. And also Dictate of Erebos as well, saying like your removal options in the deck are quite limited, whereas Dictate of Erebos, it's basically Grave Pact with Flash. So 3 in double black, Flash, whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. So this would have been, I think, really, really nice. Like if you do, get into combat, and then because you got like some small creatures in here, and then you could do Dictate of Erebos. Some of your small creatures die, and then a bunch of other all your opponents have to sacrifice creatures. You've got a few creatures who have got sacrifice effects in here as well. So I think any of these would have been okay. I do think the Doomwake Giant and the Fate Unraveler are okay though. But I would have been happy with any of these 3 in sort of any combination really. But yeah. So in summary, I think this one's actually pretty interesting. I say just because it has no instants, has no sorceries, it is just creatures and enchantments, which I think is really, really interesting. And I think it does double down this theme of enchantments and constellation stuff. Constellations, I think, is just a cool mechanic. Always like these kind of, I say, like landfall-esque abilities where like you just get a reward for doing something that you want to be doing in the deck anyway, which in this case is just playing enchantment creatures. I say the one which I do have is this had more enchantment creatures in it. I say you had like so many in block, but you know, is what it is. I mean, that's, you know, they got to leave some room for you to make it your own, I suppose. But yeah, overall, I think this one's actually pretty good, pretty interesting. I like it. What are your thoughts on this one after seeing it? If you have any thoughts or stories or comments or opinions about the deck or any of the cards in it, stick a comment below. I'll give that a read. But I'll be back next time to look at another Journey Into Nyx intro pack. But until then, thanks for watching and listening, and have a great day.